Hello and welcome to my channel, and today is Wednesday, which means we are doing a case of missing and murdered. It's pretty simple, missing and murdered. So it's either going to be a case about missing or people that went missing and were subsequently murdered and stuff like that. So we're just going to jump right into this because it's a short one, and I know this is going to end up probably in shorts. The last one didn't, so I'll try to drag it out a little bit, but I don't know how well that's going to work because it's really a short one because it was such an old case. Robert Cosgrove Greenlease Jr. was a 6-year-old from Kansas City, Missouri, who was the victim of a kidnapping and homicide on September 28, 1953. His father, Robert Cosgrove Greenlease Sr., was a multimillionaire auto dealer, and the demanded ransom payment was the largest in American history at the time. Greenlease Jr.'s kidnappers, Carl Hall and Bonnie Heedy, had no intention of returning him to his family, the child having been murdered before the ransom demand was even issued. Both perpetrators were sentenced to death and executed in Missouri's gas chamber in December 1953. Heedy was the third woman ever to be executed by U.S. federal authorities. I forgot about this one, and I meant to look up who the other two were. So give me a second, and I'm gonna see if I can find it really quick. Okay, so according to this, Jane Champion was executed. She was the first woman executed, and she was executed by hanging in 1632 for the murder and concealment of the death of her infant child. She was the first woman known to have been sentenced to death and executed in the English colonies that would become the United States. The second woman executed by the U.S. federal government was Mary Surratt. She was technically the first woman to be executed by the United States government. She was convicted of conspiring to assassinate President Abraham Lincoln and executed by hanging. So there's that. Oops, didn't mean to do that one. So Robert Bobby Cosgrove Greenlease Jr., we're just going to call him Bobby because his name is a mouthful, was born to Robert Greenlease Sr. and Virginia Greenlease, his second wife, on February 3rd of 1947. The elder Greenlease was a multi-millionaire car dealer and entrepreneur, having made his fortune by introducing General Motors vehicles to the Great Plains in the early 20th century, owning dealerships from Texas to South Dakota. He was 65 years old when Bobby was born in 1947. The Greenleases were said to have been devoted to Bobby. According to author John Heidendry, Bobby was said to be a trusting boy. Bonnie Heedy later stated that from the moment she appeared at his school, posing as his aunt to take him to his mother, he just took her hand and did anything he was told to do. Which is unfortunate that, at 6 years old, and especially back in that day, that kids were so very trusting, because obviously this could have maybe been avoided had they taught him about stranger danger, but most people in that time don't think about it. In September 1953, Carl Hall, 34, and Bonnie Heedy, 41, kidnapped Bobby from Notre Dame de Sion, I think is how you say that, a Catholic preschool located in Kansas City, Missouri. The kidnappers were drug-addicted alcoholics then living together in nearby St. Joseph. In the early 1930s, Hall had attended Kemper Military School in Boonville with Paul Robert Greenlease, Bobby's adopted older brother. Hall had planned for years to victimize his former classmates' wealthy family. So, this was a years-long plan to obtain money from this family, because he knew the family was wealthy. Heedy visited Bobby's school and persuaded a nun, Sister Morand, that she was his aunt, telling her that his mother had suffered a heart attack and was in St. Mary's Hospital. She then took Bobby away in a taxi driven by John Oliver Hager of the Ace Cab Company, who would testify in court. When another nun from the school rang to inquire about Virginia Greenlease's condition, she discovered the truth and her husband contacted the FBI. I didn't know nuns could have husbands. Maybe it's a different religion, but as far as I know, nuns don't marry. Hall and Heedy took the child across the state line to Johnson County, Kansas, where Hall shot him dead with a snub-nosed .38 caliber revolver. They then took the child's body to St. Joseph and buried him in the backyard of Heedy's house at 1201 South 38th Street. After the murder, Hall and Heedy sent Bobby's father messages in the mail and phone calls demanding a ransom of $600,000. Greenlease, trying to save his son, held off the authorities and paid the money. At that time, it was the largest ransom ever paid in American history and remained so until the 1972 kidnapping of Virginia Piper. Hall became convinced that police would trace him and Heedy to St. Joseph, so he randomly decided to drive to St. Louis. I don't know what that was supposed to do for him, but yeah. The couple collected the ransom and fled. Once in St. Louis, Hall left Heedy in the middle of the night in a rented room. He contacted criminal associates to enlist their help in diverting police attention. One of the associates, a former sex worker named Sandra O'Day, was supposed to fly to Los Angeles and mail a letter Hall had written. It was thought that this would divert police from St. Louis. However, O'Day caught a glimpse of the ransom money. St. Louis police soon learned that Hall was flaunting a large sum of money and they brought him in for questioning. Hall eventually implicated Heedy. The police found her at an apartment at 4504 Arsenal Street. Honestly, I could not think of a better name for them to be on. And discovered Bobby's body in a shallow grave in her backyard. Bobby was later interred in the family mausoleum at Forest Hill Calvary Cemetery in Kansas City. Bobby's kidnapping and murder scandalized the nation. Because he had taken over state lines, the crime became a federal case under the Federal Kidnapping Act. So that's like any time that like a child is kidnapped, once it crosses state lines, it is now an FBI-involved problem. Hall and Heedy both pleaded guilty to kidnapping. The jury deliberated an hour and 8 minutes before recommending a death sentence. The two were executed together in the Mercerie chamber on December 18th, 1953. Now, I did research that because I was curious. I have never heard of any other, like, couples or, like, couple killers being executed together. So, like, they'll execute one, they'll execute the other, but not usually together. So, that was interesting to me. Like, if anybody knows of any other cases where that's happened, let me know, because I was kind of interested by that, because, like, why? It doesn't really matter if they're together or they're not. Like, as long as they're, you know? Only 81 days passed between the time the crime was committed and the executions. Neither Hall nor Heedy made any attempts to appeal, which, good, because you wouldn't have won. Heedy is one of only 4 women to have ever been executed by federal authorities as of 2021. Oh, I did write them down. I just wrote them down later. The others being Lincoln assassination conspirator Mary Surratt in 1865, and Ethel Rosenberg, who along with her husband Julius was convicted of being a Soviet spy and executed by electric chair on June 19th, 1953, just months before Heedy. The 4th woman, Lisa Montgomery of Kansas, was executed by lethal injection on January 13th, 2021 for the 2004 murder of Bobby Joe Stinnett. Since the federal government did not have any execution facilities, Missouri state facilities, and thus the then legal gas chamber, were used to carry out the executions. This was the case for all federal executions in the 20th century. Every time I have to do a talking piece. Before the first executions at the federal prison in Terre Haute, Indiana in 2001. Heedy is the only woman executed by the federal government by gassing. Heedy is buried in Clermont, Nottoway County, Missouri, where she grew up. Only $288,000 of the ransom money was ever found. The missing $312 remained a subject of wide speculation, including that the cop who recovered the original ransom, this is a theory, I don't know if it's true, but one of the theories is that he took some of the money, and that's why only $288,000 was found, because that's all he was willing to give up. Because he couldn't take all of it without it looking suspicious, but he could take some of it. And they would just write it off as, oh, they must have spent it, they must have used it, whatever. honestly would surprise me. I mean, you know, it happens. Let's be real. It happens. And I'm not saying anything against law enforcement. I'm not saying anything against cops, but it does happen. But that was pretty much the story. It was, like I told you guys, it was really short because it was an older case, and that's always harder to find more information on. Anyways, I think the next one I'm doing is on Dean and Tina Klaus and their daughter, Holly Marie. Very interesting story. I am almost done writing that one, so that will be next week. As always, please don't do anything I wouldn't do. Be cautiously kind to others and make good choices. And I'll see you later. Bye.